Welcome to the Dreamwork Summit, where Dreamwork experts, renowned psychology professionals, and brilliant authors will help you tap into the soul-guided healing wisdom and creativity within your dreams. Share this event with your friends and family, and come join us on Facebook at the Shift Network. And now your host, Kimberly Moscaro, PhD.
Welcome, everyone. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm very excited to introduce our special guest today, Paul Levy. Paul Levy is an author, wounded healer, and founder of the Awakening in the Dream community in Portland, Oregon. He's a long-time Tibetan Buddhist practitioner and student of the work of C.G. Jung. Welcome, Paul. It's really good to have you here today.
Yeah, I'm so happy to be here, really. Thank you so much.
You know, I saw your talk online, though. Unfortunately, it would have been great to see it live, the one you did last year through SANS.
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah, it was really, really striking, very deep and moving. And so I know in your work, you mentioned that quantum physics is pointing at that dreamlike nature of reality. And for our listeners, can you explain that a bit more?
Yeah, oh, for sure. So quantum physics is, it's actually empirically showing beyond any shadow of a doubt that this life we're experiencing is a dream, is of the nature of a dream. And not only that, but quantum physics itself, the insights that are coming through it are an expression of the very dreamlike nature at which it's pointing. So, and in real simple form, before quantum physics came on the scene, people, scientists thought that this world objectively existed separate from us, and we were just the passive witnesses trying to understand this universe. And then quantum physics comes along, and it basically showed that the universe that classical physics, pre-quantum physics, was studying, i.e. the objective world, didn't even exist. There was no such thing. And that even beyond that the act of observing this universe actually influences the universe observed. The observer is the observed. And so that's the rabbit hole that that I went down in my book on quantum physics, because that really is a description of a dream, that the act of observing the dream, because what is a dream? It's a reflection of the mind. So the way we are observing the dream is influencing the very dream. But then because we don't see that, because it happens, not sort of over time, I mean, it's happening over time too, but it happens instantaneously, right in zero time whatsoever, then we become entranced thinking that this world we're seeing is objective, and that sets in motion a whole unconscious process where we actually imprison ourselves. And I would love to talk more about that, but I want to first say the implication of what I'm describing, that quantum physics is actually showing us, is that the act of observation is creative, okay? And that's pointing at that we have this unbelievably vast creative power at our disposal moment by moment. But to the extent that we're unconscious of that, then that immense creative power in a way gets turned against us in a way that's actually killing us, okay? And if I could just to give you an example of how profound this insight is, just via the creative imagination. Just imagine you're in a dream, right? And you're in a dream, and what is the dream? But it's a projection of your mind. It's your mind. It's a reflection of your mind. So whatever perspective you're holding in that dream, instantaneously, like I've been saying, gets reflected back by the dream. So if you're holding this point of view in the dream has no choice, being a reflection of your mind, but to just reflect back and offer you all the evidence confirming your viewpoint. So now you have evidence confirming the seeming objective, actual sort of this nature of your viewpoint, that you have all the proof you need that what you're seeing actually is objective. So that makes you even more fixed in that viewpoint of feeling, well, I'm just seeing objective reality. And the more you have that viewpoint, the more the dream, being a reflection of your viewpoint, just offers you evidence confirming it ad infinitum in a feedback loop whose origin is within your own mind. And what I'm describing, that's basically saying that we have this genius power we have this immense, we're these creative geniuses as far as shaping our experience of our world. But to the extent that we're not awake to it, then we become entranced by our own creative genius in a way that's killing us. And so what I'm pointing out, this is the solution. This is where the actual, the source of all the world crises, and this is where the solution is to be found. It's to be found within our psyche, within, having to do with the fact that we have this unbelievably unimaginable creative power at our disposal, but we're unconscious of it.
Very, very powerful stuff. And what I think of when I listen to these types of talks or consider these concepts is in my own dream life, when I have experiences of lucid dreams or dreaming within a dream, like, when I've knew I was dreaming, but then I thought I woke up, but I'm still dreaming, like layers of dreaming. So this dream-like nature of reality is you see it, reflected to you in the dream state. And I always feel like this is such deep, complex stuff, and I can pull from my experience and my great excitement for the topic. But wow, right? It's like, it's mind-blowing for me.
Oh, it's totally mind-blowing. And what you're saying, because what I began having this experience that you're describing, like in the early 80s, long time ago. And the experience I was having, and it got me in deep trouble because I was so excited about what I was realizing that people thought I had gone crazy. But I was beginning to realize that, oh my God, this is a collectively shared dream. And think about what a dream is. What a dream is our inner process. What's going on inside of us is all of a sudden getting dreamed up and into physical materialization and manifestation in and as the seemingly outer world. So when I talk about dreamlike nature, the dreamlike nature of reality, what I'm pointing out is, and it's not just me who's saying this, every spiritual tradition is basically pointing at this in their own way. I'm just, just trying to translate it based on my own experience, that what we're seeing in this seemingly in the world outside of ourselves is actually reflecting what's happening inside of us. And it's doing that symbolically. And symbols are the language of dreams. And so this is, actually, Jung calls this having the awareness, symbolic awareness. That in other words, you not just, see your world in literal ways, but you actually cultivate symbolic awareness and you begin to interpret your experiences as if you're in a dream and as if you are dreaming what's happening to you. That opens up the symbolic awareness and you begin to have the recognition that what is happening outside in the world is actually expressing synchronistically. It's reflecting what's happening inside of us. And that's why Christ actually says, when you make, in the apocryphal text, he says, when you make the inner as the outer, that's when you enter the kingdom. He was pointing at exactly this.
So we're going to keep going down this rabbit hole because, I know you write and talk about how just like a dream, these inner and outer worlds are actually not different, but interconnected. And so can we go down that rabbit hole a little more?
Absolutely. Totally. Yeah, please. Yeah. So you want me to, or do you have a particular question or?
Well, I just want to hear more about, your thoughts about this, because this is really like where you're such an expert and can explain this stuff beautifully. But I'm here really, really absorbing it, and my mind is going in so many different directions with this. So, I'm thinking about, I say, share with us whatever you like. But where I'm kind of going with this too is with this inner kind of outer relationship. What does that mean for what's taking place right now? I'm here in California. Right. Wildfires are burning out of control.
Right. I'm in Portland, and I haven't been able to go outside of my front door for over a week because it's so toxic from the smoke. Yeah, no, absolutely. And the thing is that when you have a dream, dreams have like these multiple dimensions of meaning. and they're all true on their particular, aspect of, and so, yeah, on the one hand, absolutely, we have to really, engage with the outer world and put out the fires or heal all the outer problems. But part of what goes on, to the extent that we don't have the recognition of the dreamlike nature, is we actually invest our attention outside of ourselves, thinking that the source of the problem and the solution is outside of ourselves, and that's to distract ourselves. And so what I'm basically talking about when I talk about this creative power of the mind, that is actually, it's the part of us that is dreaming our dreams, not only at night, but it's dreaming our life. And, so when you connect with that, you discover that we actually, like I was describing in a night dream, and we become entranced by the way the dream just reflects back, and we think it's separate from us. And then by thinking the world is objective, we've created ourselves as being a subject that's separate from the world. And then all of a sudden, and that's the real trauma of being in the separate self. And then we react to our projections onto the waking dream or the night dream. And we become in this conditioned state, and we're like spinning a cocoon that actually suffocates us. And it's all based on our own creative power that we don't know about. So I'll just give you like an example how this actually has to do with what's happening in the world. To the extent that I'm not in touch with my own like sort of, whatever you call it, shadow, say, my own darkness, right? Well, in a dream, if I'm not in touch with a part of myself, what happens? Well, I split it off. I disassociate. It gets projected outside of me, dreamed up into and as the dream. As soon as that happens, now I have evidence that my shadow, that the dark part of me, that evil that I've split off from myself, now is out there because I have somebody's carrying that projection. So as soon as I have the evidence, it's that same process I was describing, where all of a sudden I become more entrenched and fixed in my viewpoint that, well, I am just light because the evil's out there. And then the more I see it that way, the more that the dream is going to give me all the evidence I need, offering me people who carry my projection of the evil. And then what happens, it's really interesting, is then at a certain point, I try to destroy the carriers of the evil, which is an externalization of the initial inner process of trying to destroy and get rid of my own evil. So what I'm describing is that our inner process that's happening in us is now getting played out in the outer world, but I don't recognize that. And then the final part is that by me trying to destroy whoever is the carrier of the evil, I actually have become possessed by the very evil that I'm trying to destroy. And that's madness. And that's why in my work, I'm always talking about that our species has fallen into a state of collective madness. But what I also point out is that when you see the dreamlike nature encoded in that madness, it's actually showing us something. It actually contains its own sort of this medicine, and it's showing us the dreamlike nature, which is to say it can potentially help us to wake up. So the very poison, that madness, it's like a quantum phenomena. There's a superposition of states that it's simultaneously encoded in that energy is this evil and madness that can destroy us, and it's actually potentially helping us to wake up to the dreamlike nature and our place in it. And it all depends on how it manifests, all depends on if we recognize what is being revealed to us.
A lot of things are coming to me, Paul, as you're talking about this. Of course, this very us against them, or, this kind of polarization. And simultaneously, what's coming up for me is the idea of paradox.
Yeah.
And in my, I'm reflecting a little bit on when I was, I don't won't say too much here. I think activism is very crucial and important, but also when I was much younger, the type, I'll just say, of energy around the activism I was involved in was very, very polarizing. And it really kind of put me in, and this was through my teens and 20s. And by the time I was in my 30s, I shifted out, kind of shifted a lot and got more into Tibetan Buddhism and going down that line more in my 40s. But in those earlier years, there was very much this polarization going on. And
Yeah.
I think it can make us very ill. And
Well, that polarization and the body politic has never been as polarized as it is now. So just think about, here's quantum physics, who's basically proven that there's nothing objective. Whatever's out there, it's not objective separate from us. Well, if there's not an objective, cosmos out there, well, then what happened to the subject? We as a subject need an object to be in relationship to in order to be a subject. If all of a sudden there's nothing objective, it's shining light on who we are. And that's the doorway into the dreamlike nature. Because, when you have the recognition, like say if you have a dream, tonight you have a dream and in the morning you wake up and there are all these, characters. There are all these dream characters in the dream. Well, who are those dream characters? They're embodied reflections of parts of you. They're not separate from you. And that's the point of view. When you see the dreamlike nature, you see through the illusion of the separate self, and you recognize that we actually don't exist separate. We're interconnected, interdependent. This universe, quantum physics has shown, this is a quantum cosmos. It's quantum on every scale, the micro and the macro, and everywhere in between. And a quantum system, there's no separate parts. So that's, in other words, one of the gifts that's being shown to us by what's actually happening in our world, in that people are saying to me, wow, this is surreal, what's happening, it's like a nightmare. Yeah, it's a nightmare unless you recognize what it's revealing to us. And one of the gifts it's revealing to us is that we don't exist in the way we've been imagining we do if we think we exist as a separate self. Because as soon as we think we're separate, then we think that other people are others, are other than us, and then we're in illusion. And that's in a way, that's the primal trauma, that we can only heal by really, by shedding light on us, on who we are.
And these could be really tough concepts with, the way we were educated, at least in the contemporary West and here, where I'm from. So yeah, these can be really hard concepts. It seems to be, really in opposition to individualism and these other ideas that we grew up with.
Right. And the thing is, when you say, and I understand where you're coming from and I appreciate it, they're a tough concept, but it's not like a theory and it's not a concept. This is just, it's empirically, like the Buddha was saying, don't take my word for it. Just, please do the experiment yourself. And the experiment really has to do with just, to inquire into the nature of your moment by moment experience, And you see, the key thing is when I was talking about, quantum physics, and then that's like, it's an expression and it's showing us the dreamlike nature. And then I was pointing out, oh yeah, there's nothing objective, and the act of observing actually creates the universe, so the act of observation is creative. That's basically saying that we are unbelievably creative beings. We're creator beings. We're co-creator with the universe. And the idea being that the solution, one other way of articulating what I'm pointing at is that the solution to the world, to the multiple crises that are converging, is to get in touch with the creative spirit that is in touch with us 24/7 all the time. But it's like we have this wand, this magic wand that's fallen from the heavens, and we all are carrying it. But because we don't know how to use it, it's like turning against us in the sense that it's killing us. What I'm pointing at is that it's not any, just a nice idea or a concept or a theory. It's like, no, this is actually available to us. This, if you actually just inquire in the present moment as far as your own experience, the nature of your experience. You actually can't help but to connect, just like a dream. The dream, what is a dream? We're creating the dream, not the I, the ego. No, that's a figure in the dream. That dream ego, that's a model for who we are. Who we actually are is the dreamer of the dream. And and simultaneously we're being dreamed. It's a circular, synchronistic, cybernetic, non-local, atemporal, acausal feedback loop that we're actually like in, and it's generating out of our own infinite creativity. And that's what I'm continually trying to point at, that when any of us actually actualizes that, to whatever degree we do, because it's infinite, but then when we connect with other people who are also having lucidity and connecting with their nature and tapping into the creative spirits that comes through us, and we actually get in sync with each other and hook up with each other, then we can change the waking dream we're having. And that's what this is all about. And that's evolutionary. And a way to understand that is very simple. In a night, just through your imagination, in a night dream, imagine you're in a night dream, you have, recognition you're dreaming, you become like having this, whatever, like lucid dream, and then imagine connecting with other of your dream characters who are also recognizing that this is a dream and they're having lucidity. And you hang out together and you trip out together. You contemplate, what are we realizing? We're realizing this dream universe that we thought was real and separate and solid and other than ourselves. We're now realizing that we're actually co-dreaming it into collective materialization. And once you have enough people who are like connecting with each other based on that realization, they discover, I imagine, that they could put that incredible dreaming power together and change the night dream they're having however they want, and of course, within limitations of how expanded their consciousness is. What I'm describing in a night dream, that's our situation in the waking dream. That's what's being presented to us. That's why I'm continually talking about how important it is to see the dream like nature.
Yeah, that's real stuff. I know I don't get to keep you forever here today, but I want to ask, since you've taught, you've shared this idea of profound creativity and the nature of reality. I want to then just shift a little and ask you about what that means for healing ourselves, let's say with disease or other issues that, you've talked about it, healing the world. Which is healing ourselves, because I'm really trying to stay with the outer piece, right, that connection there. But when it comes to, let's say, people suffering on what appears to be a more individual level through disease or other types of conditions or challenges, can you guide us a little bit on?
Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
With that?
And, so what I'm pointing out, this incredible creative energy, you see what happened for me when I had this awakening that I referenced in the early 80s. And I said I got myself in a lot of trouble because I was so excited and ecstatic at what I was realizing. And I was, in my early 20s, I don't think anybody could have been prepared for what was confronting me. And I understand now something was being revealed to me. And what it was being revealed was the dreamlike nature. And what that means, I bring in quantum physics to answer your question. Now, quantum physics is saying that you have a quantum entity, and that's what this whole world is composed of. And before that quantum entity actualizes into form, it exists in a state of potentiality in any and every way it could possibly ever manifest. It is existing in that state of potentiality. And then we come along, or any sentient observer, and we observe that quantum entity, and all of a sudden it actualizes into particular form, and all the other possibilities, they just disappear as if they never existed, in a way going into like parallel sort of existences. And what that means is that even if one of those potentialities, before you observe it and the wave function collapses into materialization, even if one of those potentialities is, to quote a quantum physicist, highly, ridiculously, incredibly unlikely, it could still be this very next moment, the way this moment manifests. Okay, so you see what that's pointing at. We have all the evidence we need that things are really bad, and it's like, oh, people get filled with despair and pessimism and depression. And if you're holding that viewpoint, then being a dream, you're actually going to attract evidence confirming your viewpoint in a feedback loop whose origin is your own mind, and then you are part of the problem. But the point is, when you understand what quantum physics, the hardest of the hard sciences, is showing us, you would realize, why in the world would I think that way? I want to hold my mind and my awareness in the highest way and dream up the highest possibility. And so it's not just like, this is on all levels, helping the world, but also helping ourselves. And if we have these diseases, well, it's known that people who have terminal cancer or these terminal diseases sometimes literally get healed. That's pointing out that this universe, that the key, possibly or probably even the most primary component of this physical world, is consciousness. And that's once again pointing at that we're not awake to that, and that unawareness is getting reinforced in the materialistic culture that we live, because people are under a trance thinking that the physical reality is the primary reality. And so they're in a way casting a spell on each other, which reinforces their own spell. And that's the collective madness. So what I'm pointing out is that when people actually really begin to wake up to the dreamlike nature, that's basically saying this universe is infused with consciousness, and that's primary. And that's pointing at the incredible power, that creative power that we all have through our consciousness. How we interpret this ink blot being a dream, how we place this meaning, actually influences the way the dream manifests. It influences our experience of ourselves. I'm always going back to connecting us with our incredible agency. And if you think about what's playing out in the world with the mainstream media, all this fear is being generated and people feel helpless. People just go sort of feel powerless and feel like, oh, there's nothing I can do. I might as well just make the best of it. But, that's to disassociate from their own agency. We are these unbelievable, powerful beings, and particularly when we hook up with each other. So it's what I call, it's a true conspiracy. It's we can conspire to co-inspire each other. Okay, we can literally dream ourselves awake. That's one of the infinite potentialities that quantum physics is showing us. That's within the realm of the possible. When you understand what I'm saying, the realm of the possible expands to unimaginable degrees. There is the idea of being hopeless or despairing or depressed or pessimistic. There's no reason for that at all.
This is critical information, Paul, and I really love your passion. And I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom today and allow you to spend some time sharing some final words with us. Any final thoughts about the dream?
Yeah, no, thank you, totally. And so for me, here's the image that fell in my head as you were, because we all have this inner figure in us that's sort of like our guide. You could call it the ally, the muse, genius, or angel, or inner voice, guiding spirit, whatever you call it. There are a million names, and that's pointing at that it's really like a higher dimensional phenomena. And, to the extent that any of us cultivate and really strengthen our relationship to that guidance system, which we all have, which a lot of us in our culture have been, we've not been connecting to because of the trauma of living in this world. And so to the extent that any of us can really heighten that relationship with that inner guidance, and of course the inference is that I'm talking about going within and really being in relationship and differentiating that voice from just like the typical sort of monkey mind, which is the neurotic, worrying, thinking about stuff, that has a particular signature and frequency. But when you actually are able to differentiate that energy from when you're getting downloads, which we always are, from our higher self or whatever you call it, and you actually honor that, then that really will help you. That will support you. That'll give you this guidance. And it has to do with finding your voice, with creatively speaking what is inside of you, and in whatever creative way, giving shape and form to it. And part of that is coming out of the realization that, wow, we depend on each other for our own survival. We're interconnected. We're not separate. And the energetic expression of that realization is compassion. Okay, so don't underestimate the profound importance of really connecting and expressing, and as best as we're able, to embody real, genuine compassion. Don't underestimate the power of compassion. The traditions I study say that, in a real way, is the most powerful energy in the whole universe. So that would be what I'd like to say.
Thank you so much. What a perfect way to conclude our talk today, with compassion and knowing that the solutions within us, we can make a real difference here. Yeah. I want to thank you for your time so much. And for those that want to connect with you further, awakeninthedream.com is a way we can reach you. Is that right?
Right. That's right. That's my website with all my articles and interviews and my email and everything you need.
Awesome. So good to have you here today, Paul. And again, I really appreciate your time and sharing all of your wisdom with us.
Well, thank you so much. Really. Thanks, Kimberly.
Thank you for joining us for the Dreamwork Summit, brought to you by the Shift Network. To learn more, visit thedreamworksummit.com. To join our global community of people awakening to their divine humanity and taking inspired action, visit theshiftnetwork.com. Thank you again for gathering with us and for sharing this healing path with your friends and family.